The red and blue lights flooded the rearview mirror without warning. Malik Johnson felt his stomach tighten as he eased his car onto the shoulder. The road was nearly empty, stretching flat and quiet beneath the late afternoon sky. He checked his speed instinctively. He hadn't been speeding. His turn signal had worked. The car was registered, insured. Everything was in order. Still, his hands were already sweating. He turned off the engine, rolled down the window, and placed both hands on the steering wheel, just like his father had taught him years ago. 10 and 2. Visible, still. The patrol car stopped behind him. A door opened. Boots crunched against gravel. Malik stared straight ahead, breathing slowly. He was 32 years old, a project manager, college graduate, no record, but experience had taught him that none of that mattered in moments like this. The officer appeared at the window. White, late 40s maybe, sunglasses hid his eyes. One hand rested near his belt, casual but deliberate. "License and registration," the officer said. "Yes, sir," Malik replied calmly. He moved carefully, narrating every motion. "My wallet is in my back pocket. Registration is in the glove compartment." The officer nodded once. Malik retrieved the documents and handed them over. The officer glanced at the license, then back at Malik's face. His jaw tightened just slightly. "Where you headed?" the officer asked. "Home," Malik said. "Just finished work." "What kind of work?" Malik paused for half a second. He hated that question. "I manage construction projects, commercial builds." The officer hummed, non-committal. He looked into the back seat, then down at Malik's hands again. "You know why I stopped you?" he asked. "No, sir," Malik said honestly. "Routine check," the officer replied. "Vehicle matches the description of one we're keeping an eye on." Malik felt a familiar mix of frustration and fear rise in his chest. Matches the description could mean anything or nothing. "I'll be right back," the officer said, turning away. Malik watched him walk back to the patrol car. His heart began to pound harder now. He resisted the urge to reach for his phone, knowing how that might look. Instead, he stared out the windshield and counted his breaths. 1, 2, 3. The patrol car door closed. A moment passed, then another. Malik could see the officer through the side mirror, seated now, typing into the computer. His lips moved slightly as if reading. The radio crackled faintly. Malik swallowed. He thought about his wife waiting at home, about the voicemail he still hadn't returned, about how quickly an ordinary day could tilt into something else. The radio crackled again, this time louder. The officer leaned closer to it. "Repeat, say again," came a distorted voice. The officer straightened. Malik's pulse quickened. Something in the officer's posture had changed. Less relaxed, more alert. The radio spoke again, clearer now. "Unit 12, be advised. Run that name again. Possible match confirmed." The officer's head snapped down toward the screen. Malik's name. He saw it reflected faintly in the officer's sunglasses when the man glanced up toward his car. Malik's chest tightened. Match to what? He thought. The officer's hand hovered over the radio, and then the voice came through one more time. "Correction," the dispatcher said. "Not a suspect. That's the individual we flagged earlier today. Internal Affairs requested immediate contact." The officer froze. Malik didn't understand the words, but he understood the shift. The officer slowly looked up from the radio, and for the first time since the lights had come on, he didn't look in control. He looked uncertain, and whatever the radio had just revealed, Malik could feel it in his bones. This stop was no longer routine. The officer stayed in his car longer than before. Malik could feel the seconds stretching, each one heavier than the last. His fingers pressed into the steering wheel so hard they ached. He kept his eyes forward, but his awareness was sharp, tuned to every small movement behind him. Finally, the patrol car door opened. The officer stepped out, but the casual confidence was gone. His walk was slower now, more deliberate. One hand still rested near his belt, but it wasn't relaxed anymore. It was cautious. He stopped beside Malik's window. Mr. Johnson, the officer said. Hearing his name spoken aloud made Malik's throat tighten. Yes, officer. The man cleared his throat. He glanced briefly back at his patrol car, then returned his gaze to Malik. There's been an update, he said. Malik waited. He had learned long ago that filling silence could make things worse. The stop is still standard procedure, the officer continued, though his voice lacked conviction. But dispatch flagged your name during the system check. For what? Malik asked carefully. The officer hesitated. That information wasn't shared with me in full. Malik felt a flicker of anger beneath the fear. Then why am I being detained? The officer's jaw tightened. Sir, I need you to remain calm. I am calm, Malik said. I just want to understand what's happening. The radio crackled again. Both men heard it. The officer turned slightly, pressing the radio closer to his ear. Unit 12, the dispatcher said, lower this time, more controlled. Supervisor is en route. Do not escalate. Repeat, do not escalate. The officer's shoulders stiffened. Malik exhaled slowly. A supervisor meant witnesses, protocol, cameras. That mattered. Officer, Malik said, his voice steady but firm, am I being accused of something? No, the officer said quickly. Too quickly. No accusation. Then am I free to go? The officer didn't answer right away. Before he could, another car pulled up behind the patrol vehicle. Not another cruiser, an unmarked sedan. Dark windows, official plates. The officer turned fully now, his face tight. Two people stepped out. A woman in a blazer, badge clipped to her belt. And beside her, a man with grey hair and a tablet in his hand. The officer straightened immediately. Sergeant, he said. The woman nodded once, then walked past him without a word and stopped at Malik's window. Mr. Malik Johnson, she asked. Yes, Malik said. I'm Sergeant Alvarez, Internal Affairs, she said calmly. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. You're not in trouble. The officer behind her shifted his weight. We flagged your name earlier today, she continued, because you filed a formal complaint last year against an officer in this precinct. Malik's heart skipped. I testified, he said quietly. Yes. The sergeant nodded. That case was reopened this morning. New evidence came in. She glanced back at the officer who had pulled Malik over. This stop, she said evenly, was not authorized. The words hung in the air. The officer's face drained of colour. Malik felt a strange mix of relief and something colder. Vindication, maybe, or exhaustion. I'm free to go? Malik asked. Yes, the sergeant said. Immediately. She stepped back. The officer stood frozen for a moment longer, then slowly handed Malik his license and registration through the window. His hand shook just slightly. Drive safe, he said. Malik took the documents, met the officer's eyes for the first time, and nodded once. As he pulled back onto the road, the red and blue lights shut off behind him. In the mirror, Malik saw the officer standing between the internal affairs agents, speaking urgently, his earlier authority gone. Malik's hands were steady now. The radio hadn't just changed the stop, it had shifted the balance of power. Malik didn't turn the radio on as he drove away. He wanted silence, the kind that let his thoughts settle instead of crashing into each other. At the next light, he stopped and rested his forehead briefly against the steering wheel. His breath came out slow, controlled, but his chest still felt tight. Encounters like that didn't end when the lights shut off. They stayed in the body. When he pulled into his driveway, the sun was already dipping low, painting the street in soft orange light. His wife's car was there. That helped more than he expected. Inside, the house smelled like garlic and onions. Familiar, grounding. You're late, his wife Aisha called from the kitchen. I got pulled over, Malik said. She appeared in the doorway instantly, concern written across her face. Are you okay? He nodded. Yeah, I'm okay. He told her everything while she stirred the pot, stopping every now and then to look at him like she was making sure he was really still there. When he finished, she turned off the stove and hugged him without a word. "They reopened the case?" she asked finally. "Looks like it," Malik said. Aisha shook her head. "I always wondered if anything would ever come of that." "So did I." That night, Malik barely slept. Every time a car passed outside, his body tensed. His mind replayed the moment the officer's tone changed. The radio, the pause, the uncertainty. In the morning, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Mr. Johnson," a woman's voice said. "This is Sergeant Alvarez." Malik sat up. "Yes." "I wanted to follow up," she said. "Yesterday's stop will be documented. The officer involved has been placed on administrative leave pending review." Malik closed his eyes. "There's more," she added. "We may need you to provide a supplemental statement. Would you be willing?" He thought about the fear, the anger, the years he'd spent wondering if speaking up had been a mistake. "Yes," he said. "I would." "Thank you," she said. "Someone will be in touch." After the call ended, Malik sat quietly for a while. Then he got dressed and went to work. At the job site, things were noisy and chaotic as usual. Machines running, people shouting measurements, the smell of concrete in the air. It helped. Real problems. Problems you could see and fix. During lunch, one of the younger guys, Jamal, leaned against the trailer. "You hear about that cop getting investigated?" he asked casually. "All over the local news." Malik froze. "No," he said. "I didn't." Jamal pulled out his phone and showed him the headline. No names. Just internal review after unauthorized traffic stop. Malik handed the phone back. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt lighter, like something he'd been carrying without realizing it had finally been set down. That evening, as he drove home again, he passed the same stretch of road where he'd been pulled over. No lights, no siren, just open asphalt and sky. Malik drove on, not because the road had changed, but because, this time, the truth had spoken first. The meeting took place a week later in a plain government building that smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. No flashing lights, no uniforms on the walls, just neutral colours and a long table that felt designed to keep emotions out of the room. Malik arrived 10 minutes early. He sat with his hands folded, watching people pass through the glass hallway outside. His reflection stared back at him, calm on the surface, tired underneath. When the door opened, Sergeant Alvarez stepped in, followed by 2 other officials. They greeted him politely, professionally. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Johnson," Alvarez said. "We know revisiting this isn't easy." Malik nodded. "I didn't come because it's easy." They asked him to tell the story again. From the beginning, the stop from last year, the questions that didn't make sense, the tone that shifted, the search that followed without consent. He spoke slowly, carefully, the way he had learned to do when the stakes were high. No one interrupted him. One of the officials took notes. Another occasionally asked for clarification, not to challenge him, but to understand. When Malik finished, the room stayed quiet for a moment. "You understand," one of them said, "that this investigation may lead to disciplinary action, possibly termination." Malik met his eyes. "I understand. And you're comfortable with that?" Malik thought of the officer from the roadside, the way his voice had hardened before softening, the way power could be used or misused without consequence, unless someone insisted on accountability. "Yes," Malik said. "I am." When the meeting ended, Alvarez walked him out. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. "Both times." Malik paused near the door. "Does it actually change anything?" She considered that. "It changes the record," she said, "and sometimes that's how bigger things start." Outside, the day was bright and ordinary. Traffic moved, people hurried past with their own lives in motion. Malik stood there for a moment longer than necessary, letting the air fill his lungs. That night, he and Aisha sat on the porch, watching the sky darken. She rested her head on his shoulder. "You don't talk about it much," she said. "What it cost you?" Malik stared out at the street, because talking about it feels like letting it win. She squeezed his hand. "You didn't let it." A month later, a letter arrived. Official, carefully worded. The investigation had concluded. Policy violations confirmed. Corrective action taken. Malik read it twice. He didn't feel closure in the way movies promised. There was no dramatic release, no sudden peace, but there was something steadier, a sense that the truth had weight. Weeks after that, Malik volunteered to speak at a community forum. He stood at a podium, looking out at faces young and old, some skeptical, some hopeful. He told them about the stop, about the radio, about how quickly power could shift and how fragile it really was. Routine only stays routine, he said, when no one asks questions. The moment someone does, the system has to answer. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Driving home afterward, Malik passed a patrol car going the opposite direction. Their eyes met briefly through the windshields. No lights came on. Malik kept driving, hands steady on the wheel, knowing something important. Not perfect, not finished, but real, had changed. Not because the radio spoke, but because he did.